I was recently asked a question by a subscriber. I plan on breeding my 2 pet mice and I haven't done this before. Any tips? I thought this question was a perfect gateway to discuss what I've learned along my journey, so that you might feel better prepared if you're considering breeding mice. Every tip I give you throughout this video is valuable, so I encourage you to watch it until the end. Domesticated house mice breed quickly. Typically they have large litters of 6 and up. It can be less or more, but that is an average. They are sexually mature at a mere 6 to 8 weeks, which means that one litter could quickly become several if male and female mice aren't separated at this point. You'll also need to figure out how you'll house male mice. Although sibling males can get along well and live together, once they mature they become very territorial. If aggression becomes a problem, you'll need to separate them, as this will be a welfare issue. Mice can fight to the death. Whilst rarer, I have discovered that this can also happen with female mice, especially after giving birth when they feel very protective. Neutering male mice gives you the option of housing them with either male or other female mice. Many of you who follow my channel will know that I have bred domesticated house mice before, but I now concentrate on rescuing them and instead breeding native Australian Spinifex hopping mice. These little guys should not be separated. They have a lot more wild in them than a house mouse and live in very close-knit, small colonies of both male and female mice. Their colony size maxes out at about 10, and their litter sizes are much smaller at around 3 per litter. It can be less or more, but that is the average. If a colony gets too big, there's a risk that the new babies will be culled by the adults. So with that in mind, you'd need to think about how you would manage a growing colony. For example, will you rehome some when the colony gets too big? Or is there a wildlife release program you can become involved in? Never release native mice into the wild unless you have sought advice from specialists. Animals become humanized incredibly quickly and can therefore die very quickly in the wild if they're released unprepared. When I bred my first litter of domesticated house mice, I made the mistake of keeping mum and dad together because I felt sad about dad not seeing the babies, when I didn't realise at the time that mum can get pregnant as soon as she's given birth. I then had to separate them and she became very stressed. So clean the cage before the birth, and once mum has made her nest, provide lots of soft tissue and things like large grade soft cocoa coir, which is essentially the husk of a coconut, and then don't touch it. I'd recommend placing a hide where the nest will be that makes it easy to lift up and check on them without having to move anything. Once the babies are born, it can be very tempting to pick them up. However, I learned that doing that means there's a risk of mum neglecting them, particularly with my native hopping mice. Let mum do her thing until they're weaned. Typically once they have a bit of fur, I start to interact with them and get them used to some handling. There are occasions that I've had to intervene. For example, if I found a baby mouse outside of the nest. Make sure water bowls are kept very shallow so that when the babies start walking around, there isn't a risk of them drowning. I always provide a bowl and a bottle just in case a bottle stops working. In conclusion, I would say that I love raising baby mice, but it is a lot of work. They do breed quickly and you need to have a plan, and just understand that whilst they do look really cute and it can be really tempting to raise them because they're cute, you have to understand they grow up and they grow into bigger mice, and as they get bigger they're going to require more space and all of the other things that they need in order to be looked after. I know that pet stores often say mice are great first time pets because they're easy to look after, but I would actually disagree. I think they're very delicate. They have very delicate respiratory systems and they do need a lot of love and care. You'll also need to make sure that you've set aside a vet fund as well, because mice do tend to get sick very, very easily. So all in all, a rewarding experience as long as you have planned ahead.